Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee. Yes, the Gaza ceasefire has been delayed. It was supposed to start at 8:30 in the morning, and now it's 9:41, and it's delayed. America attacked Yemen last night. Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen said they attacked the American aircraft carrier or American warship. I believe it's the aircraft carrier, which we don't know if that's true or not. If they launch a missile, they say they attacked it, even if the missile falls down 100 yards later or something, so we don't know. Have they attacked American warships previously and hit them? Yes, I'm quite sure they have. All right. So we'll get into all of this, and then we're going to discuss have the two witnesses visited the earth previously with scriptures. Okay, so I'm going to go into the live stream. Make sure we got a live stream. Okay, so we have a live stream. And now I'm going to put up my two posts, which is rather quick. But if I talk too much, I'll make a typo. It was cold last night. I think it was under 50. That's cold for us. And now I'm going to put my email address up. Just a few seconds. Giving people a chance to come in. Almost done. Okay. We're finished. And I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so what happened? Well, yesterday I was telling you there was discrepancy as to what time everything was going to start with the ceasefire. That's because people were quoting American time. Why they did that, I don't know. But the time was 8:30 this morning, ceasefire stops. 4 p.m. this afternoon, hostage exchange. Okay? Now, the Hamas in Gaza were committed to, according to the ceasefire, giving us the names of the hostages that were to be released. They did not do so. In other words, they broke the ceasefire. So Netanyahu did not break the ceasefire. He said he's delaying it until they produce the names. Now, we need to read into this, understand what's going on. I put it on my Telegram several times, and I believe I mentioned it on YouTube, that the way these people operate in Hamas, judging from previous ceasefires, is they if the ceasefire is 8:30, then someplace between 8:27 and 8:32, they would launch a couple of missiles, a small attack, just to show their insolence and how arrogant they are. Okay? So I was expecting that not only from Hamas, but from the Houthis and Hezbollah at the same time. But it didn't happen. Instead, they failed to release the names of the hostages, even though they were told by Israel that they're in breach of the contract without doing that. This is just their arrogant way of trying to convince the world that Israel's afraid of them. Come on. The place is a shambles, and they're acting like they won. All right. So there is no ceasefire. Now, about 10 minutes before the ceasefire, approximately, could be 15 or 20 minutes, I'm not sure, but before the ceasefire date or time of 8:30 a.m., we did strike someplace, a refugee camp, or I believe we also struck in Gaza. That was a warning to them to release the names of the hostages. I just checked 3 or 4 minutes ago, it hasn't happened. What do I think will happen? First of all, this is end times, and you could never tell for sure. I don't think Biden, who's still president for another 27 hours, or I don't know, something like that, another 30 hours, something like that. He's president until about noon tomorrow. I think Biden and Trump, when they hear about it, which eventually they will, may take an hour or two, will start having their people contact Hamas, and Trump will start with all hell to play. When you do a ceasefire, what I mean is you agree to a ceasefire and you do it. You don't agree to a ceasefire and then not perform. So you're back to all hell will break loose. That's what I believe Trump would say, words to that effect. Biden would say, oh, come on, let's get it done, and stuff like that, They'll also put pressure on Netanyahu, but they're not going to lean hard on Netanyahu. They're going to lean a little. They're going to say, well, what are you holding their feet to the fire over this for? If they don't release the hostages at 4 o'clock, okay, now we're with you. But because they're not giving you the names, come on, you want to blow the whole thing? And Netanyahu's going to say, you don't understand the Middle East. If we give in on this point, it'll just get worse and worse and worse, and then the ceasefire will be broken, and we won't have a ceasefire. And then the Trump people and the Biden people say, oh, yeah, you might be right. So how is this going to end? Most likely, they'll release the names. When they do missile launches just before the ceasefires in the past start, they don't launch, if they do it, a few minutes before, they usually do a very nominal launch, very few missiles, just to make a point. All right, so Trump is president tomorrow at noon, okay? And I'm sure that, the hostage due date for release is 4 o'clock Israel time in the afternoon. And I'm rather sure that they'll come up with some names, okay? I would be hard pressed not to. Now, why are they doing this? Well, there's 100 at least that we're thinking are hostages there, and we don't know how many are coming in a coffin or a body bag, but this is torturous for the families of the hostages and their close friends, of 100 or so people that they're expecting may start getting released. They won't give us a schedule of who's getting released when and names. So the people, the families are in great tension because they don't know. In addition, Israel doesn't know who the heck to move down near Gaza to greet the hostages. The standard would be, the mother, father, grandparents, brothers and sisters, the immediate family would be transported down to the area where the exchange is. And what's normal protocol is they get taken to a paramedic or a doctor right away, maybe with an ambulance, right? First thing you got to do is make sure they're not wearing a bomb belt, right? These people have been in captivity for over a year. The second thing you want to do is examine them and see if any of them are critical. They could have been drugged. We don't know. Okay? What diseases or ailments or injuries do they have, and what kind of attention would they need? They might be dehydrated. They need IV fluids. They might have a raging infection. They need antibiotics. They might have a broken bone. They need to have it splinted, and we don't know. So they could be in tremendous traumatic shock. They might need a sedative. So as soon as they're examined, and we want to make sure they don't have any explosive belts on, although they never did that, don't put it past them. The next thing is then the family would come greet them and the press would take pictures. This would be probably some miles away from, where the border, where the exchange was made. And after a brief meeting, they would typically go to a hospital. Okay? Now remember, they're examining them for physical injuries and where are they at mentally? Are they so battered down from this long period of captivity, and the women may have been raped, 300-400 times by now, we don't know, and they need to be interviewed with the psychiatrist and maybe sedated. I don't know. Some of them may just walk out and say, hey, I'm glad to be back, and it's okay. Right? They also need to make sure that the hostages released are hostages. What if they put some idiot, terrorist in the mix that knows Hebrew with a bomb belt? You see, it's more complicated than people understand. So you can't notify the family they're scheduled to be released, but they might come in a coffin. We don't know. You see what they're trying to do? They're trying to twist the knife and make the pain and suffering of the Israelis as much as they can. Now, why couldn't we just take hostages and say, you don't give us our hostages back, we're not giving yours back? Because they don't care. They just turn around and say, they're martyrs, go kill them. They'll be in paradise with the virgins. Fine, kill them, You see what we're dealing with? Okay? They would never, ever in a million years do a hostage exchange unless maybe you got, Sinwar, or who's dead, or Nasrallah, who's dead. Maybe something like that they do an exchange. Maybe. But just regular people, soldiers, or even if you got the equivalent of a colonel or a general, they'd never do that. Go kill him. He's a martyr. You see, this is a death cult. These terrorists are really a death cult. So what do you do with them? There's only, really two ways that you could stop them. One way is they have no weapons, no equipment to fight with. They can't fight, which is sort of the case now. Okay, then they stop fighting. There's three ways. The other way is they're captured and detained, in a secure situation. And the third way is they're dead. They don't stop. So taking hostages isn't going to do anything. Nothing. What are you going to get out of it? A lot of bad press and genocide and, all this stuff. And that's it. Maybe they don't want to do this. Well, they would really. I just think they're trying to torture the families. And they're pretty sure that Netanyahu's not going to go off the deep end and send 8 or 10 jets to stop bombing Gaza. Now, that might happen. But I don't think it would happen until after 4 p.m. Because then we move into, which is basically about 6 hours from now, because then we move into a new phase. They're not giving up the hostages. Okay? Is it possible that's their plan? Yes, but I don't think it's likely. The Houthis and Hezbollah have done nothing. Iran has done nothing. Iraq has done nothing. So I think it's going to go through. We're noticing the Hamas police department, they have their own police department, all of a sudden found their uniforms and they're running around their uniforms now. They didn't do it previously because they're afraid of being targeted assassination. They would run around with their guns and they'd probably have some sort of credential, but they're not doing it. Now they're running around in their uniforms. So they planned on this thing going through. So it's going to go through. It's just this is their last, They might be dragging it out to keep the tension on the people and that are the families of the hostages and just drag it out as long as they can. The big thing that Netanyahu screwed up on, and this was probably Biden and Trump pressuring him, is we want all the hostages back before there's a ceasefire. Don't forget that it's an international crime, a war crime, to take hostages that are civilians. And the lion's share of them are not military. If you take military, they're not hostages. You're supposed to treat them as a prisoner of war, which means they get put in a decent location where they could sleep and eat, and have access to a shower, a sink, a bathroom. You don't have them perform labor for you, and you don't rape them, and you don't torture them or anything like that. They're put in a POW camp. That's it. You're supposed to give them medical. None of this did they do. You don't hear the world say anything about this. But it's true. Biden and Trump both don't talk about this. But it's true. Easily looked up. Raping hostages, which we've had hostages come back. We know they're raping, okay? Raping hostages? Are you kidding me? You know what America did to the Japanese for what they did on the Death March and all this stuff? Or was it Bataan, I think, something like that? And they put them in horrific camps, and then after the war, we tried to hunt down the guys in charge of these POW camps that were torturing them and all that. Japanese officers beheaded American soldiers at the camp in front of everybody. You know, the only time you really got a right to kill a POW is if he's using violence against the soldiers guarding the place or trying to escape. That's it. If he's not violent, You can't do it. So nobody talks about that. So that was one big mistake Netanyahu made, and you'll see how that bears out later on, I'm sure. Netanyahu yesterday was publicly declaring that he is going to finish his goal of ending Hamas. Okay? And that doesn't mean that we can't resume the war after the 6 weeks is up. That's a mistake because they still have hostages and they're likely to turn around and start publicly executing them. The reason they don't want to do that publicly on social media is because it'll turn the world against them. Nobody wants to sit and watch on social media somebody getting their head cut off with a slow knife or getting drowned or burned or whatever they do. Okay? So, they might turn around and try to turn this into a negotiation while Biden is still president. And that derelict shipwreck would probably work with them. But the downside to that is Trump will hear about it. Israel will tell him. And then he'll start screaming bloody murder at Hamas. You got to remember they're mocking Trump if they continue the negotiations. And they don't release the names of the hostages, So if it goes to 4 o'clock and all of a sudden I think there's supposed to be 3 hostages presented, and they present 3 hostages, Netanyahu's going to take them back, give them the prisoners from the Israeli jails for those hostages, and it looks like it would probably go on without them releasing the names, although Netanyahu would say there's not going to be any further ceasefire if you don't give us the names, and they know the public opinion, the people in Israel want the hostages back. So it's going to be hard for Netanyahu to pull a move like that. The bottom line is I think this thing will get sorted out. Qatar and Egypt are going to be screaming at Hamas, telling him you're making us look like idiots. We're never going to be able to negotiate for you again because you break your word to us. And, this is the direction it's going to go. I don't know what Iran's going to tell them. Probably something along the lines of, we don't know what Trump's going to do, so give him the names, something like that. I don't think that CeaseFire is going to blow on this. So I'll take a quick look and see if there's an update on this. They may have already backed off and gave names. I gotta go into some of the Hebrew social media here to make sure I'm getting it. Chief, take it easy, man. Take a load off. No, they're not up to date. What Netanyahu likely could do after a little while is start bombing Gaza, but I think he's on thin ice with that. Now, we know Biden is about done. In other words, he's got, what, 30 hours or something, you know? So, I don't think Biden could come up with, let me check our mainstream newspapers. I don't think Biden could do much at this late stage, although I wouldn't guarantee it. He's quite hateful of Israel. Let me see if I could come up with any updates here, if there are any. I'm just picking up CeaseFire's officially postponed. I'm not getting any updates. No, there's no update on that, so it's still postponed or delayed or whatever you want to call it. I think the next things to look for is what happens between now and 4 p.m. this afternoon. So if Israel starts bombing Gaza and say, well, you didn't comply, well, they're not going to return the hostages at 4 o'clock. But Netanyahu's probably going to have to wait till 4 o'clock, and then the bombing will start again. What's Biden going to do? It's getting pretty late in the game to do anything, wouldn't you think? He's already delayed the weapon shipments to Israel, and Trump said he'll reverse them and give it to us. He really doesn't have any time to mobilize troops or anything like that. I don't know what he's going to do. Negotiate. Trump will blame it on Hamas, and Biden will have a very hard time explaining it. Now, there was supposed to be, I think, 600 trucks coming in with humanitarian aid this morning after 8:30. So they're probably stuck someplace sitting in their trucks, wondering what's going to happen. The people in Gaza need the humanitarian aid. 60 of those trucks are fuel. So they could use it for cooking and things like that. Maybe heating. I don't know exactly what the deal is, but they had celebrations for at least 2 days in Gaza now. So Hamas is disappointing the people. And the Houthis have to figure out what they're going to do. They're going to gear up for more attacks. And I don't know what Hezbollah can and cannot do. I doubt they could do anything. Israel doesn't have much of a downside to speak of in this, except from Biden. But I think Biden's run out of gas. So Israel is more than likely not going to get anything resembling a real attack out of Hezbollah. I would say the chances of that are below 1%. The same from Syria, the same from Iraq, the same from the Gaza. They don't have much. And the Houthis. So the Houthis may try shooting some missiles at Israel. But we're ready for that. They'll be taken down. I wonder why America hit the Houthis yesterday. Right? Because the Houthis said they were going to stop their attacks on ships in Israel if there's a ceasefire. So, the one thing is that makes them look like they were responsible for the ceasefire. In other words, another victory thing going on. So, Is there a chance this will go right back into the full-blown war again? Sure there is, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Trump and Netanyahu didn't work this out. Hamas did it. So, you know, it's not a false flag thing they're cooking up. That's it. We just got to wait and watch. I do believe it'll resolve. They know that if they just show up and release the hostages at 4 o'clock without ever giving the names, Netanyahu's going to accept them. And that could be their plan. Because if Netanyahu doesn't accept to take Israeli hostages back, which I think they're also American citizens, this is going to be bad for Netanyahu. So this is probably all you're dealing with here. Okay? Let me go in the live stream. That's Chief, my little Pekingese, barking. Zionists are no different. Oh yeah, I remember on October 7th, Israel invaded Gaza. We raped the women, we burned mothers and children alive, put a baby in an oven, cut the heads off people, raped the men. What else did we do? Oh, I got it backwards. No, Hamas did that to Israel. Oh, I had it wrong. Chicago, New York, noting, and most are watching to see what happens. I'm going to pray much spiritually happening. Oh yeah, lots is happening. Somebody says the names were released. Okay. Let me try to find that in the news. From Haaretz, Hamas says it provided Israel with list of hostages to be released on the first day of truce. That would be today. Let's get the other media. I'm not making sense out of that statement. It's like Hamas is saying that it's supposed to do, I don't know what's up. Oh, TikTok got shut down, and another service I really never heard of before. But Trump says he's going to give him a 90-day window to sell it or something. Guys, I'm not. Haaretz is indicating something happened. Let me go in social media. Okay, this person that posted in there is correct. This is posted at 10:09. It's 10:15, I think. Hamas identified channels from a senior source. We handed over the list of names a short time ago, and the occupation will receive it in the coming minutes. Yeah, I'm believing it now. This is a reliable source. Palestinian channels are reporting 6 deaths and more than 20 injuries in several IDF attacks in the Gaza Strip after 8:30 a.m., the 8:30, the time that the ceasefire was supposed to start. According to these sources, the IDF attacked Bet Hanouin and blah blah blah. You don't know the geography of Gaza. I don't even know the geography of Gaza. I've never stepped foot in Gaza. 8 dead and 25 injured after 8:30 a.m., the supposed start date for the ceasefire. So Netanyahu's using an iron hand on them. Netanyahu doesn't want to let it look like they're in control. Let me check another. So it's on. The ceasefire is on. Let me read the rest of it. The more images, this is on my Telegram, of Gaza civilians thanking their false god for the return of Hamas, I wouldn't want to say his name, to their streets. They hate Israel, they like Hamas. It may not be over yet. The Israeli government is saying they still have not received it. They could be lying. Hamas could be lying. It's Hamas that's saying they sent the names. Israel's saying they're not in receipt of them. Israel would never lie about this. I don't believe. Ben Gvir, his political party, Atzma Yehudit, only has 6 seats in the Knesset, but they quit the government over the ceasefire. The Netanyahu government before this happened had 62 seats. Now they're down to 56 out of 120. But Gvir said he's not going to move to do a vote of no confidence. He's going to rejoin the government if the war resumes. So what we got here is Hamas saying they gave them the names. I believe it, but we got to wait till Israel says, okay, we got the names. My guess is they did send the names. I think so. What are they going to turn around and say? Well, we sent it and they never got it, and then what'll happen? Everybody will say, well, send it again. I think it's just their little last minute stand, and Netanyahu took an iron hand to them and started attacking in Gaza, killed a bunch of them, and they said, okay. See, things are likely to change with Trump, but everybody's thinking it's going to be better for Israel. I'm thinking it's going to be worse for Israel. All right. I don't know anything about the baby getting. We don't know who's getting released and when. I'm not sure yet. So Netanyahu did start the war up again. Hey, he's got more guts than I thought he had. I mean, killing, a bunch of people and wounding others is pretty serious. So he did start the war again. Ben Gvir probably liked that. Smotrich, who's got someplace around 7 or 8 seats, said that he's going to wait till the 42 days are up, and if Israel resumes the war, he's going to hang in there with Netanyahu. If Israel doesn't resume the war, he's going to leave the government. And Israel can't survive Ben Gvir. Netanyahu, I don't believe, can survive Ben Gvir and Smotrich leaving the government. But he has 6 weeks to find replacements. And he's good at politics. So I'm not so sure Netanyahu's going to topple, but he's on thin ice now. And if Smotrich leaves the coalition, I would say he would be treading water. And you can only do that so long. So we got to watch this one. All right. Let me get my notes. So Netanyahu is talking like he's just going to do this as a 6-week ceasefire and then resume the war. The problem with that whole scenario is there's still a bunch of hostages potentially that they have after the 6 weeks. They're only releasing something like 32 or 33. I'm going through my notes. I want to make sure I got all the news before I go on to the Bible. The winds in Southern California are expected to increase again this coming week. The week started in Israel. We start on Sunday, but Monday's when America starts their week. So I would guess they mean Monday through Wednesday. They're talking of winds from 30 miles an hour with gusts up to 60. Now that's not hurricane force winds, but it's very efficient in spreading fires. This is not good for Southern California. They're worried about San Diego and Santa Barbara being affected. So in other words, it's the fire going south. They're calling this the Santa Ana winds. The humidity is still extremely low. So they had a brief respite or interlude between, when the winds died down for a few days and they made some progress, but they're still in trouble. So this thing is likely going to flare up again into new areas. Now, as the area range spreads out, they need more and more firefighters, which I don't know how many more they can get, but this is problematic. And like I told you previously, there's a very big Navy base in San Diego. So if San Diego gets it, oh boy, and it goes to that base, and the base burns, it's going to leave. Well, the ships at pier aren't going to burn, but I imagine a lot of the piers are not made out of wood. 80 years ago they would have been, but they'd be made out of concrete with concrete pylons or pillars, and stuff like that. So that's not going to burn. And the ships, I don't think would be effective. They're probably, 60 to 300 yards off the land. I don't think they might move the ships, bring them out to sea for safety and smoke pollution and stuff like that, but I don't think the ships are in jeopardy, but the base can be. It depends how they built the base. If they built it all out of concrete or whatever the heck else they used, then a lot of the buildings on that base, in my guess, would date back to World War II. And, that could be problematic. Now we need to talk about Trump's deportation. Okay, number one, we don't know what's going to happen on Inauguration Day with Trump. He took a flight. They put him on some jet that wasn't Air Force One, but it was an American aircraft. I mean, not a private carrier or, Delta or United or anything. It was a government plane, and they took him, and he's staying in a residence he has in Virginia in a golf course until Monday. His Secret Service protection was massive, and there were these thick antennas, about that thick, and looked like they were about 18 inches high, on the roof of some of the cars, and I'm being told those were anti-drone systems. Probably true. I'm not expecting Trump to get killed or them to stop the inauguration or anything like that. We're in end times, anything could happen, but I'm not expecting it. I think they'll inaugurate him on time. It's going to be done indoors. As many of you know, there's a huge cold front moving into America, and I don't know what day it's going to hit, very soon, I believe, and it's going to have sub-zero, well, I think sub-freezing temperatures. This would be very cold. Look, the American people, the biggest risk they're going to have here is everybody's going to be turning on electricity. They're going to be in their houses, so they're going to have lights on, televisions, computers, heaters, central heat, electric heaters, and, stuff like that. Not that many people are going to be out driving around, although plenty of people will. People will go to the stores, people will work in the supermarkets and stuff like that, So your office, you go to work in your office, the heater may not be up to par, so you wear a sweater or you wear your jacket in the office, but it probably just would be a sweater or something. And if the power goes out in communities from so many people hitting the electricity, they'll have repair crews that'll fix it so it'll be out for a few hours. So your house will get cold, but it's not going to be, that cold. It'll take probably 12 hours or more for the house to really get cold. So people will have to bundle up for a few hours, and then the electric will come back on. I don't see any major crisis just by looking at this incident. It also may, if it happens in D.C., in the cities it happens to, it's probably going to curtail demonstrations, protests, and sleeper agents doing anything. Now, Trump is beginning his deportation not on Monday, Tuesday, big difference, few hours, right? And he says he's going to start with Chicago. Now, let's talk about this so you understand some obvious things. The skilled military trained sleeper agents, of which there's probably quite a few million, are not going to just hang around in sanctuary cities or Chicago or anyplace else and wait to be questioned, asked for ID, not being able to produce it, or it's not legitimate, and then they're put in handcuffs or twist ties, taken into a search, taken into a secure facility, and then deported. They're not going to do that. These are not just desperate people that wanted to get away from some Central South American or Asian country. These are trained people that have, handlers, communication with others, getting expert advice, getting support for housing, for food, for medical, for money, for communications, for weapons, whatever. They're going to go deep. You're not going to get them. And they've had plenty of warning, weeks of it. So they're not going to be sitting around as sitting ducks waiting for some guys in uniform to interdict them or go in their housing project. They're gone. They're gone already. So yeah, Trump's going to get the druggies, the bums, those that have no options, no place to go, no money. They're going to get rounded up. Okay? But the dangerous sleeper agents, now some are military, some are probably military intelligence oriented, and they're not going to just submit. They're going to be gone. They're already gone. So don't expect much with Trump's deportation. Okay? There's tens of millions of these people. 30 million is a lower estimate of people that aren't afraid to talk. Trump even used the 30 million figure publicly. Okay? So this is going to it would take years. I think at the end of Trump's term, he would still be deporting them. Okay? It's so easy to get lost. All they got to do, basically, is not live in these housing projects that are flooded with illegals and just stay indoors. So somebody that's got an 1,800, 2,000 square foot private house that's a sympathizer with them can put 6 of them in the house or whatever, and they just stay inside. You keep the windows, shades closed, and that's it. They could do internet, cell phone, play games, talk, work out with weights, whatever. And they just stay inside. How are they going to get caught? They're not. They're not going to go into the woods and start camping in the woods. Now, some of them might, but the weather's cold. In most of the country, it's pretty easy for them to hide. They're supported by countries, so they got basically all the money they need. It's called safe houses. It's going to impact. Now, the sleeper agents and the handlers back in their home countries know that eventually, over time, they're going to get deported if they stay there. The Trump's law enforcement people be running commercials. If you see something suspicious, call us anonymously. He could give rewards for turning in illegals. If he gives $100 a head, and somebody knows a house where there's a handful of them in there, he phones them in. He makes himself $400 or $500. Why not? So what Trump's doing is he impacting getting rid of these people? He is, but he's also putting a fear on the sleeper age single males of military age, and they got a limited amount of time to work, and they know that because eventually Trump will overcome. He'll beef up law enforcement. The first step to beefing up law enforcement is not running ads, recruiting, interviewing, running background checks, hiring them, giving them a few weeks to report to the training base, and then months of training, and then more training, and it takes 9, 10, 12 months to get there. No, he's going to take agents that are on other duties, federal agents that do other things, and he's going to assign them to ICE from other agencies. So they'll pick up thousands of more federal agents. He might take a lot of IRS special agents and IRS intelligence special agents and send them over to work with ICE. There's a lot of other agencies he could use to scrape up. DEA is another one. He could scrape up enough to get it done. He could use the Army, military intelligence, naval intelligence, Coast Guard intelligence, Air Force intelligence. He could use the CID agents, which are like detectives. He could draw good amounts of people. Could Trump hire mercenaries like Blackwater and deputize them to help ICE? Well, he'd have to deputize him as a U.S. Marshal. I don't believe they deputize like an ATF agent or an FBI agent. I believe you can get deputized only as a marshal. I was briefly in a federal program many years ago where there was this original Sky Marshal crap they came up with that was extremely brief. And they were swearing everybody in as U.S. Marshals because if a plane crashed, wherever you were in the United States, wherever you happened to be, you had the power of the local sheriff as the U.S. Marshal. That's the law in America. It's not constitutional, but they have it. So they would give you a letter that was on official stationery that says you are a U.S. Marshal. Now they have credentials for it, but they didn't back then. So, but it was under customs, so you had customs credentials. You had a badge. They gave you a badge and an ID card like a detective, and then they gave you a double credential like what the FBI has with its 2 cards and a leather holder. You had that, so you had all sorts of ID. The easiest thing to carry was the badge and the ID card, but he could hire mercenaries. And he's not going to pay him $10,000 or $15,000 a month to run around in America with ICE. He could pay him probably $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month, and that would work. And they could recruit new mercenaries that have military and also law enforcement experience. So they could find somebody that, I don't know what the criteria would be, 3 years of law enforcement, 8 years, whatever they come up with, and they could put them to work as mercenaries, and then just give them a 2-week course of, how the federal law works and policies, and then they would probably have to give them a week at the range, maybe 3 days. Most of these people know how to shoot. My experience is knowing how to shoot is like swimming. If you haven't swum for 10 years and you go in a swimming pool and you're just going to start swimming. Within 6 feet, you're going to have it down again. Shooting is the first shot or two. If you haven't shot the gun in a few years, it's going to be unusual. But by the third or fourth shot, it comes back. No, I'm assuming in your lifetime you shot 5 or 10,000 rounds. Like most police would have shot over several years. And that's so they would have to give them some sort of gun training and qualification to avoid some litigation or something like that. They'd have to give them lectures on how to interface and interact with the ICE people, how the law reads, what their rights are as a marshal, what they can do, what they can't do. They might restrict them and say you can carry the firearm when you're on duty. When you're off duty, you go back to the office, you put your uniform and your gun and your badge in the locker. You don't run around flashing your badge. They can do all of this. I don't know how they play it. Knowing Trump will probably let them keep the gun and the badge 24/7. In the old days, I don't know if it still goes on, they had correction officers would get a badge, and some prisons would have them leave their badge in their locker. In other words, they didn't want them taking the metal badge home with them because they didn't want them flashing the badge at people and searching them or shaking them down, whatever. I don't know. But today it's become a more dangerous job, so they probably let them have the badge, or they could just give them an ID card and they could identify themselves to law enforcement. They probably let them have the badge. The thing today is when you wear the gun, you put the badge next to the gun. So law enforcement, if they see the gun, they'll see the badge. Now you can buy any kind of stupid badge that says you're a brothel inspector or something like that, and put that on, and they really can't. If you lawfully can carry the gun concealed, and you put that on your belt next to the gun, and it says you're a brothel inspector or a chicken coop inspector as a prank badge, or you could have a badge made that says you're an alien investigator for the International Fellowship of Alien Investigators, and to be arrested for impersonating an officer, the badge has to say that you're a law enforcement officer, like a police, a sheriff, a deputy, a state trooper, or a Texas Ranger, or some special agent of a federal agency. So if they sell badges that say brothel inspector, they sell badges that say Pinkertons, which is Pinkerton is a real organization today. That might be a bad one, but people could put any kind of badge up there. So they could issue them a uniform with a cloth badge, and that's lawful, by the way. And they can't go flash the badge, So that's a trick Trump could pull out of his sleeve. He could probably come up with, easily thousands of military experience, law enforcement experience to work with ICE. Now, just being a regular soldier isn't going to cut it, but he could produce people that work for the military police. Their training is very close to city and county and state law enforcement training. I've worked with those guys. It's quite close, really. They're way more skilled on operating in military facilities and government facilities than a city or county cop is. But they're pretty close. They have on-base housing, so they know about domestic disputes. But these guys aren't going to be doing domestic dispute. They're going to be basically railroading, just plowing over these illegals. And there's not a whole lot of civil right problems that are going to present themselves. I'm sure they're not going to beat them and shoot them and club them or anything like that. But it's basically find them, ID them, no good ID that you can verify. They're going to put them in cuffs or twist ties, put them in a van, take them to a secure facility. They'll be searched the second time. They'll be searched before they go in the van, then again, probably strip searched, which would be protocol. And then they'll be put in probably some sort of jumpsuit. Oh, I doubt they will. They won't have enough. They'll keep them in civvies, and I don't know what Trump's plan on processing him out of the country is. Does he have to go to court? Do they get lawyers? I have no idea how he's going to do it. I imagine it's going to be a fast getting them detained in a facility where they'll receive medical if they need it. They'll receive medicines, bandages, whatever they need, right? They'll get 3 meals, they'll probably be they're not going to put them in a, single cell environment, they'll be in a communal barracks. These people are not going to have the same things going on as hardened criminals, like a 25-year-old that spent 9 years of his life in jail, where they're going to get into the rapes and the shakedown, and I'm the boss of this barracks, and, they're not going to get there. They're not going to do that. When I was a deputy, we used to have immigration prisoners in our facility, and I handled them from Mexico mostly, and I handled them a bunch, and they were very nice, and they were polite even, and they kid around with you, make jokes with you. They're not unpleasant people. I don't remember a single rape from them. Not once did I ever see that, or see a likely victim of that. And they would just wait, mark their time till they got put on the bus by Border Patrol. And the guys that drove the bus were pretty good guys. We used to hang around with them. They had a badge, they had a gun, they had some powers, and they were pretty cool guys. I mean, I got friendly with one of them. He was encouraging me to quit and go into Border Patrol, but I wound up going to that Customs Sky Marshal program, which was a massive mistake. And I told him I was going to quit. I didn't like law enforcement. It wasn't for me. The law didn't want me in it. It wasn't any good. Not for me. So, yeah, that's something Trump could pull out. And I haven't heard him talk about it yet, but I'll bet you it's being bandied around in D.C. Because that's a quick way to get thousands of guys. There's like when you go into a federal building, you see guys that are U.S. Marshals. They got some sort of a badge or something that says Marshal, U.S. Marshal. They're not like real U.S. Marshals. I've known real U.S. Marshals. They have a different set of credentials and a different badge, and they do different things. These are security guards, and where they recruited these guys was retired cops. A lot of cops go out, they join the force at 21, 22, 23, whatever, right? And a lot of them go out at 20 years, so they're in their 40s, right? So the marshals look for these people, and they give them probably a 1 month training course on how to use the metal detectors and, inspection of the briefcases and all that stuff, and searching people and if you actually detain people, what do you do, and this and that. And I don't know if they all had guns. I think some of them did, some of them didn't. And they would um, basically be security guards at, you know, federal buildings. So this is something the federal government knows how to do, you know. Um, but bringing in eh, military, I don't know. Regular soldiers, even special forces, their training and their is entirely different than law enforcement. There's no overlap. I don't see how that would work. They'd have to run them through a long course, and then may as well just train agents. You know, just you know. I mean, they know squad tactics. You know, they know warfare. They don't know uh, how to go to a housing project or run a, you know, stops on the street like a roadblock and start looking in cars and asking people to get out and show ID and stopping people on the street. They don't know about that stuff. You know, so now how many could Trump recruit? I don't know. I think he would be capable of within a year recruiting 25,000 at least of retired cops, or they might reduce the standard for, you know, something like 5 years of experience, or I don't know. But he could use city police, he could use sheriffs, he could use state troopers, he could use retired federal law enforcement officers, like the ones that wear uniforms, like park police and stuff, monument police, stuff like that, postal police. He could use those, depending on what they did. You know, it's Trump's going to make a serious effort, but you better be prepared that the sleeper agents are not going to just sit still and wait for Trump to come round them up. Their countries, the people that are sponsoring them and supporting them and paying them, are not going to want that. Now, there are some people that are already self-deporting out of America, but I doubt these are skilled sleeper agents. These are people that went there out of desperation and saying, oh no, I don't want to get put in jail. I might wind up in jail for 30 or 60 days. I'm going to get out of here, you know. And they just go back. Now, when Trump starts the deporting, you might see a larger amount of people just leave America. It might be substantial. And then the Border Patrol will just let them go into Mexico, no questions asked. If they're self-deporting, I think under Trump, the Border Patrol will just say, yeah, just go. They'll stand there and watch. They won't do anything. They won't interdict them. They won't question them. I think they'll just let them leave. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they'll just let them leave. Trump could be vindictive and not want that. He might want them picked up and brought in and questioned, but I think because of the sheer volume, he's going to be happy if they just walk out of America. So these are some of the challenges that this is going to face, and you got to remember that America is right now today in an extremely vulnerable position because of the transition, and that's going to last at least 3 months, if not 6 months. Now, when Trump goes ahead, and I don't know if he's going to do it by Congress or executive order, probably by Congress, that if you have a gun permit in one state, you can carry a gun concealed, or CCW. You can carry it concealed in all 50 states. There's a lot of states that don't like this. Maybe about 8 or 9 states: California, New York, New Jersey, I think Chicago and Illinois, and Hawaii is pretty restrictive. Alaska is a free-for-all with guns, basically. I don't know about what if you could carry in Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands. I never thought of that. Maybe that'd happen too. No idea. If you haven't been to the U.S. Virgin Islands, by the way, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. But the crime rate is so bad, it's like Gaza. Not that bad, but I mean, it's really bad. And they got federal police patrolling it. Puerto Rico ain't so great, but it's not anywhere near like U.S. Virgin Islands. But that place is beautiful. Clinton used to take vacations down there. The water is beautiful. Oh, it's really nice. But it's a rat hole. I mean, it's got people in there that are horrible, you know. Not just that they're going to rob tourists. Oh, they rob each other. They stab each other. They kill each other. When cruise ships go to the U.S. Virgin Islands, the boat usually docks up maybe 7, 8. People get off the boat roughly 8 o'clock in the morning. So by the time, and they usually have to leave by 5. You got to be back on a boat by 5. Most people start coming back about 3 or 4. So from the time the people first walk off the boat till all the people are back on the boats, all you see, it's amazing to see this. I've seen it a few times. All you see is these police cars everywhere. You're never out of sight of the police, basically, or maybe for a minute or something like that. And that's because they just put them out in mass to make sure that you don't get robbed and killed, or they lose the cruise ship business. And on a given day, there's usually, 3, 4, 5 ships there. Each ship roughly, let's say, 2,500 guests or something like that. It's a lot of people, a lot of money. The people take tours. There's really not much to see in terms of historical stuff or anything like that. What I used to do is I'd go to find one of these drivers, not a taxi, a driver. Well, you could use a taxi, and say, hey, show me where the rich people live. What do you want for a few hours? And I'd work a deal with the guy and get in the thing. And, usually there are other people with me who would drive around, and he'd show us stuff. And he used to, one guy showed me where Clinton went on vacations, the beach he went to. It was beautiful. And he explained to me, they had skin divers in the water when he was here. They had Navy boats out there. I mean, it was a big job to secure Clinton, but he used to like to go down to the beach. It was a beautiful place. But you can't use it because of the crime. It's crazy. I lived in San Francisco a lot of years, and I thought it was one of the greatest cities to live in. You didn't get snow. I mean, it would be so rare. I think I saw snow 2 or 3 times, and it was maybe 1/4 of an inch thick, and it would be melting, But it would still get you skidding, And it wasn't hot. It wasn't good. The winters were a little on the miserable side. But when I really liked it, it was before it was crowded and it was cheap to live there. It was a beautiful place to live. I'd go to sleep at night and hear the foghorns of the ships going under the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was, it was weird weather. You'd get about 11 o'clock in the morning, the fog would lift. Sometimes not in the summer, maybe 9, 10, but sometime in the latter morning. And then usually by 3 or 4 o'clock, the fog would come back in. So you had a very brief interlude of sunshine, but it was a great place. I really enjoyed it, But it got bad, And now I have no idea how bad it is, but it's disgusting. I lived in Sausalito, which is just over the bridge for a few years, and that was fantastic. You would in the winter, all you had to do there was put on like a wool shirt, and you were okay. I had a convertible in the winter. Even I used to put the top down in the middle of the day, and the fog would roll in every day at 7 o'clock and cool everything off. So you never needed air conditioning. You needed a fan maybe during the day. Beautiful views of the bay. It was great. It had a bad crime rate because criminals would come in from surrounding communities, so you had to be very careful. They had home invasions and stuff like that. Once I was well, more than once, I had attempts. Once I was studying Bible upstairs at night, which was my normal routine, and I was hanging out with my cats, and I was on an upper balcony, but you could reach it from the landscaping, and somebody was banging on the door outside the balcony. Now, I was in the house by myself. It was 4 bedrooms on 3 levels, and I used to carry this Smith & Wesson Model 19 357 with me from room to room. I wasn't stupid. So I was studying Bible, and I had my pistol laying right down there. I just had 6 rounds in it. I didn't have extra ammo, but that was, I felt enough. And someone was banging on the door. So I said, well, I'm not going to shoot through the glass. That's going to cost $500, So I screamed at him. I think I said something like, you don't want to come in, something like that. And when you talk like that, they go away. They say, open the door. You say, you don't want me to open the door. That's usually the end of it. So, yeah, and then I had a guy came one night, I don't know, 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, knocks on the door or rings the bell. So I go down. I wasn't expecting anybody, and I stay off on the side from the door. And it was the ground level was a garage on the left, a garage on the right, a laundry room, and a staircase to go up to the main level. And then from there you went up to the upper level. So I said, yeah, who's there? And the guy says, oh, I'm looking for this place. Can you, help me find it? And it looks like he's holding a map, I said, I don't know where it is. I can't help you. He said, could you please just open the door? I said, you don't want me to open the door. I was holding my pistol. The guy had no chance. I would have dropped him in a heartbeat, if he did anything. And he got the message and he left. And then I phoned it in, and they went looking for him. Once I went on vacation, and the beat cop came around to talk to me and said, your alarm went off. I had the alarm on the screens on the window of the garage. So he was trying to break into the garage and get in the house. And he took the screen off, and it set the alarm. And they had a response time that I think was 90 seconds, but sometime it could be 30, 40 seconds. They were serious, these guys. So I knew some of them. So he explained to me that he rolled on it, and he got there, and he couldn't find him, and he got the dog. I think he had a dog in his car, and he said him and the dog went looking through the woods to see if they could find him. They couldn't find him, and then he put the screen back or something, or was still there. So he wanted to tell me how to fix the screen. So they're pretty serious. I was in the house, and I was upstairs, and I thought somebody came into the downstairs, and I called them because I'd rather have them come instead of me shooting them and having a $20,000 legal bill. So they came, and I said, I think someone's. They said, okay, go upstairs, we'll clear the house. I said, great, let them get paid to die, right? Or kill somebody and have, horrendous time with paperwork and investigations. And they were looking under the cars, in the cars, everything. There was nothing there. Well, they were so nice about it, But they were also crazy. Once I saw they had a bank robbery silent alarm during the day. It was a weekday. There was tourists all over the place. And I'm walking down the street, and I see one of the cops I knew hiding behind a big tree, holding his shotgun, waiting for more cops to show up. And I mean, they were gonna kill the robbers. It was a false alarm, but they were just waiting. The guy was basically waiting for the crooks to come out of the bank. They usually come out the way they went in, usually because they don't know what's going on in the back. These are not the smartest guys that rob banks. You don't get a lot of money. He was gonna come out, and he was just gonna kill him. He wasn't. He was gonna jump out from behind the tree, boom, boom, and that was it. You know. Anyway, all right. So tea dances at Hilton Embarcadero. I remember Hilton Embarcadero. That was the one with the bar at the top that rotated. You had a you got off the elevator. You were on fixed land, and then the bar was rotating, and you had to kind of walk onto the bar, and then you'd be rotating. So many, why they hate old people, and they come up and they put all these nasty remarks up because they have belief systems that old people don't have, particularly pertaining to gender, sexual preferences, drugs, things like that. The Venezuelans are just part of your problem. There's more that you got to wait for. I'm just checking the chat. Yeah, it was on Market, right off of Market Street, a few yards. Art Agnes, no, I was never there with that guy. Yeah, they're so dumb. They make fun of old people. You know, what do you think they're gonna do when they get to be 50 years old? Commit suicide? They're not gonna do that. They just, most of them, I think, are children. But we were that way during the Vietnam era. With the hippies and kids like growing up like that, and the older people were not, you know, not in sync with the hippies and that kind of thing. Okay, let me just see if anything developed real quick in the social media because I'm kind of sitting here thinking I want to know what happened. Okay. The number of deaths in the Gaza Strip since 8:30 have been increased to 13, according to the people in Gaza. Uh, Gaza's deploying their Hamas police to keep order in the street. I'm trying to see if Israel says they received the list of names. There was another attack in Khan Yunis, and they're saying 7 are dead. I think it's an additional attack. Let's see. Okay, we got it. The 3 hostages to be released today, they named them. Romy Gonin, Emily Damari, a British Israeli, and Daron Steinbrecher. Okay, so they did give the names up. Yeah, the ceasefire has officially begun. I told you that's what would happen. Okay, so it started, and that now we're waiting for these 3 females. They all seem to be young, to be released at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So now their families will come to meet them. Hopefully, they're not coming out in body bags. All right, let's get into the Bible now. I got that set aside. I wanted to just make sure that we were okay. So, have the 2 witnesses been on earth prior to them being on earth now? Well, we know Elijah was in the book of Kings, right? Okay, that's a no-brainer. But let's take a look at some scriptures and see what we could glean. And we're going to spend a good amount of time on Sodom and Gomorrah and analogies with what's going on now. And I think I'm going to be able to make a decent case that the destruction of the nations that he has scattered the Israelites into in Jeremiah 30, verse 11, and the destruction of the daughter of Babylon is not going to happen until the 2 witnesses are working openly. Okay? And I'll make that case for you. Okay? But that could be tomorrow, but I'll make the case for you anyway. All right. So let's start what we know about Elijah. Okay? So let's go to Genesis 19. Well, first I'll just take this one out first. Okay, we'll cover this one. We'll go to Daniel 12. That's useful. Okay, verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. That's Israel, not the Baptist and Catholic Church. And there, of course, if you're a believer in Yeshua, not of Israeli origin, you're in Israel. The true Israel. So he would be for you too. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was now they say a nation, and they're pretty okay with that. You could say a nation, I guess, or Gentile nation or whatever. Even to that same time. And at that time, thy people shall be delivered. Remember the word delivered. Delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. That's the book of life. Okay? Delivered. Did I say delivered? Delivered. Okay. So where do we see this? Well, Malachi 3. Behold, I will send my Malach, my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. That's Elijah, like John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah. This is Elijah. And he prepared the way for Yeshua at that time, but Elijah will be preparing the way for Yeshua to return to earth. Prepare the way before me, and Adonai, whom you seek, shall suddenly come to his temple. And then it switches back to Elijah, even the messenger, the Malach of the covenant, whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, saith Jehovah of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire. Give me a second. For he is like a refiner's fire in a full of soap, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, the Levites, and purge them as gold and silver, and they may offer unto Jehovah an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Jehovah, as in the days of old, as in the former years. And I will come near to you to judgment. I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, the adulterers, against the false swearers, against those that oppress the hireling. You know, that's obviously the bad Israelites, the 2/3 that get cut off. The hireling and his wages, that's in Zechariah 13, verse 8 and 9. The wages, the widow, the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and not and fear me not, saith Jehovah. Well, let me just scan this. I think I hit the wrong verse here. Hold on a minute. Yeah, it's actually Romans 11:26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion, which is the land of Israel now, it's a dry, parched place, the deliverer. And now the glory of God of Israel Michael doesn't come out of Israel, he comes down from heaven. And shall turn away ungodliness from Yaakov. Okay, so that's your deliverer. Back in Daniel 12. Verse 2. And many of them, oh, I didn't finish this one. Okay. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered. Okay. So a time of trouble such as never was. Now, where do we see this? Well, it's Jacob's trouble. We go to Jeremiah 30, I think, verse 6. It's verse 7. We'll read verse 6. Ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. Does that sound familiar, like what we just read in Daniel 12? Of course. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. That's your Zechariah 12, not Gog and Magog. In Gog and Magog, a lot of them get raped, the houses are looted, they get taken captive. This is, now, the bad ones get cut off before, but once the siege in Zechariah 12 starts, not one Israeli gets hurt by the siege or anything. What is that word for alas? That's not a Hebrew word. Boy. Might be better translated but it's reasonably okay. Okay. For it shall come to pass in that day, that's your Zechariah 12 day, saith Jehovah of armies, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Now, I don't think Trump's going to like that. Do you? You think Elijah, if he ever meets Trump, is going to say, "Oh, great president, live forever, my lord"? No, not at all. You think he's going to submit to him? "Oh, Donald, you got so much money. You're such a great man." I think he'll expose his nakedness. Some of you know what I'm talking about. I think he'll be very Trump will like that experience if it ever happens, let alone if he ever survives it. That I will break the yoke. Well, he got the yoke on our neck. There better be a ceasefire before I'm inaugurated. But they shall serve Jehovah Elohim and David Hamelech, king, whom I raise up. Okay, it's speaking of the anointed prince. You read that in Ezekiel 45 and other places. Okay, so back into Daniel, right? 12. So that's talking about Gog. It's talking not about Gog and Magog, about the siege in Zechariah 12. So, and we'll go through 1 and 2 again. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. It's also flying to the end of the second 70 when Gog and Magog does happen. That's exactly when Michael stands up. Because that time is the second 70 years in Daniel 9:24. None of the Hebrew Bibles say 70 weeks, not a single one of them. Every single manuscript says 70. The first 70 was Babylonian captivity. The second 70 begins when the sun goes dark, the moon turns to blood, and the Son of Man appears in the clouds. That's in Zechariah 12:10. Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Now, the dry bones are going to awake before the big rising of the dead at the end, okay? Many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Now, there's a differentiation, some to everlasting life. Well, those are the ones in the dry bones. Okay, the others, they rise from the dead and they basically go up to heaven in like a spiritual body, and they don't have everlasting life, they have eternal life. The word for everlasting is olam. It means a long time from now out into the future, indeterminate. Okay, it doesn't mean you can't die. And some to shame and everlasting contempt. Well, that's the judgment. So this is a look over the next 70 years. Although it hasn't started yet, but you know what I mean. And they that be wise, is that a chochem word? No, this is a different word. It's sort of a right translation, I guess. They that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. Is this firmament word firmament? Yeah, I think it is. And they that be wise shall shine. Now that word is Zahar. And Strong's uses that. I don't think they got a good translation here. Let me check something. In Daniel 12:3. Yeah, when it says arise, shine, your light has come, that word is really the word or, which is light. No, this word is more like teach or enlighten. So they botched the translation here. But it also, no, I don't think they did botch it. No, because of the context. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. It's not the word for light, but I believe it's talking about Isaiah 60 verse 1. No, it has to be. No. It's just a different word being used. It's arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord, that's Michael, is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Jehovah shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. The glory is not Jehovah, it's the glory of God of Israel. And Jehovah comes and appears in the sky with Yeshua because he's seated at the right hand of power. Psalm 110:1, the Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. His enemies are not yet his footstools, and when he appears, he's still on the right hand of Jehovah. So they're both appearing. And the Goyim shall come to your light, the kings to the brightness of thy rising. And that's a different word yet. Okay, let's go back into Daniel. So that's the events he's talking about, which is the culmination of Zechariah 12 in verse 10. Okay. I think we're in Daniel 12:4. There's a lot in Daniel 12. But thou, O Daniel, shut up, the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Well, that I would say we're here. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. I think that's the meaning knowledge of the scriptures. Then I, Daniel, looked, maybe it just means general knowledge like the internet, you know. Then I, Daniel, when I was like in college, if you had a set of encyclopedias, right, um, you could use that for research. Today, on your tablet or your phone, you have all the books in 100 libraries, huge libraries or something. I mean, you've got everything. And you have artificial intelligence. You could request searches by voice and everything. I was in the dark ages, back in the 60s. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two. Okay, here you go. The one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river. Who do you know walked on water? He walked on water so people would know he is the one here in Daniel. Well, amongst other reasons, but that was one of the reasons. How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, this is Yeshua, the other were more than likely the two witnesses, Elijah and Apostle John, in their heavenly form. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, which held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swore by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time and times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Well, these things finished is the end of the second 70 in Daniel 9:24, when Yeshua is down on earth with New Jerusalem. You see, the time of times and a half of time is not 12, 60, 42 months. It's captivity. The first time was Egypt. Second time was Babylon. Third time was Rome, 70 AD. And the fourth event is a half a time. And that is your Gog and Magog. But you read of that also in Zechariah 14. I'll read for you, starting in verse 1 and 2. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh. That's Gog and Magog. And thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee. Well, that's not good. That's not getting delivered. For I will gather all heathen against Jerusalem to battle. Oh, it says all the heathen. Call Goyim. Okay, that's not the surrounding nations. That's all the heathen. Against Jerusalem, the battle. Now, it's not Judah and Jerusalem, it's Jerusalem. And the city shall be taken. That does not happen in Zechariah 12. It says, Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, that's raped, and half of the city should go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. That's because when you read Ezekiel 8-11, which the church never teaches you, they don't even teach you Zechariah 14, you find that God puts a mark in the foreheads of those that are grievous of what the bad ones are doing in Jerusalem, around the temple and in Jerusalem, and nothing happens to them. That's why half go into captivity and the other half just stay there, because nothing's going to happen to them. And this never happened before. It's unfulfilled. And this is the end of the Gog and Magog and the tribulation. They both happen in right about the same time, but they're different events. Okay? The beast is not in Jerusalem. And I suppose I should show you why. I'll do this rather quickly. Revelation 13, verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. Well, I guess the beast doesn't come through the opening when the locusts with the stingers like serpents and scorpions come out, because here he's coming out through the ocean. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon, that's Satan. So these are his attributes, the claws and the mouth and stuff. And the dragon, which is Satan, Satan doesn't look like a dragon, gave him his power and his seat and his great authority. So Satan gives the beast his seat. So the Bible does tell you where Satan's seat is, if you want to believe it. If you don't want to believe it, you're not going to believe it. Okay, so you go to Revelation 2, and it's, I think, verse 12. And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, these things saith he which hath the sharp sword with 2 edges. That's Yeshua. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan's seat is. So Satan's seat's in Pergamos. Pergamos is in northern Cyprus by the beach, and it's owned, operated, and controlled by Turkey. The modern translation screwed up and say Pergamum, and that's in Turkey. So whichever way you want to go with it, it's not in Israel. It's the Pergamos is the correct one, though. Okay. That's where Satan's seat is, and that's where the beast gets it. Thou holdest fast my name, and hast not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you where Satan dwells. So Satan dwells in Pergamos and Cyprus, and that's where the beast sets up his temple. And if you're going to start playing games, remember it says where, in Revelation, where our Lord was crucified, but our Lord was crucified outside the gates of Jerusalem, not in Jerusalem. So you got to line up with the scriptures, or you're in another gospel. I'll be right back. it's too hot in here. I'm going to shut the heater. Chief likes getting right next to the heater and heating up. The thing I've learned with dogs is their philosophy on life is too much of a good thing is wonderful. That came from Liberace. A lousy person, but an entertainer. Okay, so we covered that. Back to Daniel 12. So that's when Israel gets the full redemption, when Yeshua returns to earth with New Jerusalem, which is at the close of the second 70. That's the end of the half of time. And I heard, but now I'm in verse 8 of Daniel 12. But I heard, I understood not, then said my Lord, what shall, then said I, oh my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. We're in the time of the end, so I'm opening it. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. So when they leave you because they think you're crazy with the true gospel, they went out from among you because they were not of you. The wise understand, the wicked don't. There is no neutral ground. You're with them or against them. And if you dispute his doctrine, you don't follow his doctrines, you're against them. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,300, that's 1,305, 1335 days. Now that's not 1260 or 42 months for a reason. Okay? Because the 42 months in the 1260 represents a time and a half. But it's allegorical, it's spiritual, it's not literal. This is literal, 1335 days. But go thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of days. The end of days is the rapture, the last day. Yeshua said it 4 times. On the last day, which means there's no more days after the millennium is over. Satan gets them, they surround Jerusalem, New Jerusalem. Father God, Yahweh comes down from heaven, burns the whole universe up. You meet him in the air, there's nothing to stand on. You go up on the clouds to heaven, the dead rise and all that. That's the last day. That's when the rapture is. John 6:39, 40, 44, and 54. It says it 4 times. The church defies them. Left behind rapture. Yeshua said all go up on the same day. No, they got left behind rapture. See, these are serious problems. Okay? And that means they're in another gospel. Okay? Changing the Shabbat to Sunday can't be, because the Shabbat is memorializing the day that Jehovah rested when he made the creation, and that day can't change in the future because you can't change it. It already happened. So when they change it, that's another gospel. Now there's people that are not going to understand certain things in the Bible, okay? Maybe they're a new believer, maybe they don't get it, but that's going to be more or less not understanding interpretation, maybe, but when they start with the serious deviations where Yeshua has a firm scripture and they ignore it, that's when you start getting into another gospel. Okay? Everybody is going to have different understanding of different things in the Bible. Okay? But when you start with serious stuff, like changing the Sabbath, Yeshua is not the Son of God, stuff like that, it's pretty bad. Left behind raptures, that's pretty bad. Okay. So now we'll go to Genesis 19. So we see what's probably the two witnesses here with Yeshua. Now let's go to Genesis 19 and see what we could learn from Sodom and Gomorrah, which is a lot, as I'll show you. Remember, like the days of Lot, okay, in Sodom and Gomorrah. And there came two angels to Sodom at evening. It says even. Let me get the Hebrew. Erev. That's when the day rotates. Even. It's dusk, I think, in English. Accurately, we could say dusk. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground. Now, what happened here? He's hanging out at the gate of Sodom. These two dudes walk up. He runs over and bows himself over. Well, either the Lord told them they were coming and he should greet them or wait for them, whatever words you want to use, or he was just hanging out there and they came and, he realized that they were something special. We're not told the fine points of this, but something happened. And he said, behold, now my lords, plural, Adonai, Adonim, you'd probably say, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house. So he's submitting himself as the servant. So he had some spiritual discernment, insight. Something was going on here. Maybe they were glowing. I don't know. Into thy servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early and go on your ways. He didn't realize that they were at their destination. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. They didn't want to hook themselves up with him. They don't sleep. They didn't need to go to bed. They were just going to probably hang out someplace to sit down or whatever. And he pressed upon them greatly. And they turned in unto him. So he pushed on, oh, come on, please, it'd be an honor for me, whatever he said there. Okay. They couldn't turn him down. He was asking so nicely and strongly, and they knew he meant well. He wanted to honor them, knowing they were representatives of Jehovah. Malach, messengers, Malach, representatives or messengers of Jehovah. They knew that. They knew that's why he was doing it. He wasn't charging them money like Trump would. I had to get that in. Okay. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. So they ate. And before they laid down, remember when Yeshua rose from the dead, he cooked fish for the guys, the apostles. He caught fish and cooked them, and he ate the fish too. But before, remember he said, see, I'm not a spirit, I'm eating the fish. I'm not a spirit, I'm eating the fish. They ate. They were not a spirit. I don't believe these were angels. They ate the fish. I don't think we read of angels eating fish or anything. They eat manna up in heaven, but that's not what I mean, yeah, the children of Israel had manna, but, we don't have manna now. Okay. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. So, what's going on here? The men of the city, the men of Sodom, compassed, that surrounded the house. That's like surrounding Judah and Jerusalem in the siege, where the two witnesses are going to be. But here they were in a house. Oh. Both old and young, all the people from every quarter. Must have been a mob out there. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. That would be intercourse, perverted intercourse. And Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after him. So the two witnesses were inside the house. And said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have two daughters, which have not known man, virgins. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do you to them as is good in your eyes. Do what you want with them. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. So he really knew these guys were from heaven. He's ready to give his daughters up. Sort of like his brother Abraham sacrificing his son. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hands and pulled Lot into the house. I guess they opened the door to do it, unless they pulled him through the door. It doesn't tell us they pulled him through the door, so I imagine they opened it into the house to them and shut the door. So they did open the door. And they smote the men, or struck the men, that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. They blinded them. Now, where do we read about the blinding when we know the two witnesses are clearly there? Well, in Zechariah 12. Verse 8, Zechariah 12:8. In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as Elohim, as the angel of the Lord before them. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen nations that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon. Oh, wait a minute, I'm missing the scripture I was looking for. Zechariah 12:4. In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. So he opens his eyes on the Israelites here upon the house of Judah. That's who's here now, basically. Yet, going to the eyes, he blinds the horses. Seeing some similarities here, I hope. Right? Okay, Genesis 19, back there. Verse 12. And the men, now that word is esh, man, said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides, then they say son-in-law, and thy sons and thy daughters, and whosoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. You and your whole house shall be saved. You and your whole house shall be saved. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen. I would say waxed, but they say waxen. That's the English, that's not the Bible text. Let's say waxed. The cry of them is waxed great before the face of Jehovah. And Jehovah had sent us to destroy it. And the word for destroy, shaket, it's pretty okay translation. We'll go with destroy or waste. Destroy. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up get you out of this place, for the Lord Jehovah will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. They were not taking this seriously. And when the morning came, then it says the angels, but it doesn't say angels, it says Moloch. That's the word used for Elijah in Malachi 3. Malachi means Moloch. It's a play on words there. Then the Moloch, or the Malachim, the two of them, hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the lawlessness of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. They took him, led him out by the hand. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And the word for consumed, safar, we'll go with consumed. It might mean burn up, but we'll go with consumed. Now I'm in verse 18. And Lot said unto them, O, not so, my Lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. So he was afraid, I don't know, lions have fallen off the mountain or sliding down or something like that. I don't know. Okay. Behold, now this city is near to flee into, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one, and my soul shall live? And he said unto him, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing, also that I will not overthrow this city for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. I can't destroy the place till you're out of trouble, out of harm's way. Like the daughter of Babylon being destroyed, you have to get into that Exodus first before it's ultimately burned up and the waves wash over it. Therefore, the name of the city shall be called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. See, back then, the Lord sent the fire and brimstone down like he did with Moses. Moses proclaimed it, and the Lord did it, just like here. But what we read in Revelation 11 is the 2 witnesses at this point in time will have power to do all the plagues, all the hits that were done on Israel, on Egypt, you might say, probably others, at their leisure, at their will. If they don't have to go and ask God to do it, they just do it. That's why the fire comes out of their mouth. Here the fire came down from heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. she apparently was going to miss that lifestyle. Or she liked the place, I don't know. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before Jehovah. And he looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abram Abraham and remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his two daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him. That we may preserve seed of our father. So they're saying, well, we want to have preserved the seed of our father. They had no children by their husbands, which were left in Sodom and Gomorrah, so they were gone. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with their father. They should have known that this was wrong, I'm pretty sure they did. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. So he didn't know what was going on. And I guess, their idea was to have kids and just tell the father they came from their husbands that are now dead. I don't know what else, But this is a bad act. This is an evil act, and the outcome would be evil. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay I lay yesternight, I would say last night, with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and she lay down, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Now, I don't know how you could be that drunk and reproduce, but anyway. Thus were both the daughters of, I'm not saying it's a lie, I don't know what happened, but if the Bible says it, then it probably happened. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by the father. Father having children with his daughters is an evil thing. It's wrong. It's all wrong. The kids shouldn't be right. And the firstborn bare a son and called his name Moab. Well, that's central and southern Jordan. They are soon to be cut off. The same is the father of Moab, of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Amami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. Ammon is northern Jordan, and they actually submit to Israel. Such is the root of Jordan. Conceived in evil, deceitful wickedness. Let me check my notes. That's Chief Snoring. So I am making a theory here that I could be right or wrong about, that in Sodom and Gomorrah, when they defied the two witnesses, which is putting it mildly, that's shortly after that their end came. So I don't think the end is going to come until Elijah and Apostle John start working openly, and the governments of the world and the nations start defying them and insulting them and stuff like that. Then it comes. It comes on Israel. The 2/3 get cut off, the bad ones go, and the nations, the yoke gets broken off our neck, and then their nations get it. Jeremiah 30:11. I will destroy all the nations I scattered you into, and that's about 125 nations. Jeremiah 46 verse 28 is very, very similar. And when the Jezebel prophets defied Elijah, he cut their heads off, and then shortly thereafter Jezebel got it. He busted up their whole thing. So it's more of a defy the two witnesses than they have to really be successful about it. So, with the ceasefire, I believe that Elijah is going to start working in Jerusalem pretty soon with the Levites, rather soon. And that's going to begin to open up the door. of the problem when they start messing with him. And it says they're going to defile the temple. So I believe they're going to walk what it says, they'll the uncircumcised in the flesh and the heart are going to go inside the temple as an act of defiance. And these things are going to irritate Jehovah very much. And he's going to realize that they're not repenting. Here comes the temple from heaven. Here's Elijah doing miracles. Apostle John, I expect the same. And the people are not repenting. They want to get rid of the temple. They want to get rid of Elijah. They want to go back to their old ways. And then that's it. They go. And you see this with Elijah and Apostle John burning up the enemies, laying siege to Israel in Zechariah 12:6. And then you see it in Malachi 4, the bad ones in Israel getting burnt up. You also see it in Malachi 3. You get told it'll happen, and then you see the culmination of that in Malachi 4, just before the everlasting life comes, which is the appearing of the sign of the Son of Man. So I think our next big landmark is Elijah working openly. CeaseFire is done. Is 6 weeks enough time for Elijah to train the Levites? It's up to the Lord. What kind of an anointing is he going to give the Levites? I don't know. What kind of anointing will Elijah have to train them? I don't know. It's going to depend. If the Lord wanted it to happen in a couple of days, it would. But 6 weeks could be sufficient. And they may go to phase 2 of the ceasefire. I don't know. It may never need that much time. I don't know. But it ain't long. So I think the 2 witnesses are going to be the trigger. God's going to give the Israelites a chance to repent. Because remember, he's been silent for about 2,000 years. So they get a chance to repent. Just to touch on the dry bones a little bit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but maybe some of you haven't heard me speak on this, but we'll go through it. Ezekiel 37:1. The hand of the Lord was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit of Jehovah, and set me down in the midst of the valley which was full of bones. This is to a great extent allegorical, but it does tell us a lot of things. And caused me to pass by them round about. And behold, there were very many in the open valley, and they were very dry. Now, when he's blessing the Israelites, they have their bones are like oiled, they're not dry. Dry's bad, the oil is good. And he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Lord, O Adonai Jehovah. Is that what it says? Yes. Thou knowest. Again he said unto me, Prophesy unto these bones, and say unto them, O you dry bones, hear the word of Jehovah. Thus saith Adonai Jehovah unto these bones, Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. Ruach, breath, or spirit. Same word. And I will lay sinews upon you, that's cartilage, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, ruach in you, and you shall live. And that word is chaya, means life, consistent with Hosea 6:1 and 2. And you, because, okay, I gotta finish. Hosea 6:1. Come and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, he will heal. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days, the 2,000 years, will he revive us. That's the same word, kaya, give us life. Okay. So, you getting it? So these are not spiritual bodies they're getting. They're getting cartilage, flesh, bones, skin. Okay? So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise. And behold, the shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. And when I beheld, lo, the sinews, which I believe is cartilage, and the flesh came up upon them, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath or no spirit in them. Then said he, the wind, the breath, and the spirit is all ruach, the same word. Then said he unto me, prophesy unto the wind, unto the ruach, prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, come from the four winds, O great, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came unto them, and they lived. That's chaya. And stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. The whole house of Israel is possibly and likely the whole 12 tribes. It says call, bite, does it say call? I think so. Yeah, call, bite Israel, all house Israel. Behold, they say our bones are dried and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts for what they did wrong. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, thus saith Adonai Jehovah, behold, O my people, I will open your graves, so they're not all out in the valley, so to speak, maybe, right? Open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves, and bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am Jehovah when I have opened your, a lot of people will too, when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my spirit in you, and you shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. They're not going up to heaven, they're going to Israel. They're going through the second 70 to see if they're going to make it. They got a second chance because God, likely these are people God closed their eyes and stopped up their ears. And you shall know that I, Jehovah, have spoken it and performed it, saith the Lord. So this might explain to you this scripture. Malachi 4:6, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So would not these people coming up from the dry bones be the fathers, and the children be the ones here today? Let me take a look at the chat. Okay. I guess I accomplished what I wanted to get done today and what the Lord gave me. And things are different, guys. I feel it. Oh, yeah. In a good, brief way, things are different. All right. So, um, moderately knocked out. Not too bad today. So, please pray for me and my wife Rivka for our peace, safety, protection, and joy. Keep the prayers coming for Chief. He's doing nicely. Pray for the animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for better videos. Pray that the Lord gives me more insights. We're especially concerned with timing, right? Okay, keep praying for that, sequencing and timing. We're not told in the scriptures that we're not going to know the day and the hour when Elijah and Apostle John start working. So keep asking. Like the woman that wants justice, keep knocking on the door. Keep asking them. You're not sinning by asking them things like this. You want to know what's going on. Ask them for timing on the daughter of Babylon when that starts. Ask them to show you what's going to happen with Trump. Please do these things. And the Lord, ask him to get it to me so I can get it to you. Ask him about Jeremiah 30:11 when that'll happen, the wars. Okay? And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for your brothers and sisters in the true gospel in Yeshua. Pray to know more about the next great Exodus. Pray, pray, pray. Look, every day you got to read your scripture. Even if you're just reading this much, you're reading your scripture. This much is a lot better than nothing, okay? If you're reading this much or this much, it's even better, okay? And pray. You should be praying in the spirit, in the natural. Pray. If you're reading the scripture and you pray, you're going to do pretty good, I believe. And praying in the spirit, even better. And what else can I tell you? I'll keep you updated as I know more. The next thing will be the hostage release at 4 o'clock. I'm sure it's going to go through. And I don't think they're going to start with dead bodies. They're going to start with real hostages. Dead bodies will come later if they're going to come. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And today was a long one, wasn't it? Almost 3 hours. Okay, I'm out. Thank you.